Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars, and welcome to another of my PlayStation 4 reviews. Today's review is for Generation Zero. Now this is a game that I've had my eye on for a while. When it was released, I believe it was last year, it was one that I was looking forward to some degree. And it was quite cheap upon release. I think it was only something like $24.99, I think, when it was released. And I saw a couple of reviews when it first came out, and it kind of put me off. A few people didn't really like it, thought it was a bit bland, a bit boring. And since then, since it was released, I've seen a few more reviews several months after it was released, you know, quite complimentary of it, saying it's actually alright. So when I saw this in a sale recently on the PlayStation Store, I thought I'd pick it up. And I think I paid $12.99 for it, something like that, in the sale. So I thought, well, I can give it a go for that price. And what do we get with this game? Well, you basically get... it's quite an odd game in the sense of it's set in the 1980s in Sweden. And it's like a multiplayer game where you can team up with your friends. And you can and essentially you've got to investigate the area and figure out what's going on. And you're basically fighting these machines that have taken over, killed everybody. And it's for you to investigate the area and figure out what's going on. Now, it is a multiplayer game. However, you can play this single player, which I have been doing for the most part. I'm not a big fan of multiplayer games. I don't like to rely on other people to complete games or to take it seriously and do it properly. So I tend to just play games on my own for the most part, and I have done for the most part with this game. And it's okay. This game, it's enjoyable for what you get with it. I don't think it's a disastrous game or anything like that. I think the graphics for this game are pretty decent. Certainly, it's not AAA quality. It's a step down from that, but the visuals are reasonably impressive for what you're getting here, if a little bit bland, and the environments are a little bit repetitive and unimaginative. I mean, the first time you see some of the vehicles and stuff, you think, oh, that looks really cool. It looks like a car from the 80s in Sweden. But when you see it for the 40th, 50th time, you know, you're like, oh my god, there was a lot of these cars in Sweden in the 1980s. There's very little variety in the car designs and the inside of houses. You know, like I say, the first half a dozen that you go in, you know, you get this nostalgia kick from the 80s, and then after that you kind of like, okay, well, give me something new. The environments do feel a little bit repetitive and a little bit bland, and you're kind of seeing the same things over and over in them. And so the gameplay loop here is, you go to point A, you look for clues, you do some investigating, and that clue that you find, which is usually a document that you read, it will take you to the next point. You've got to go and find this next point on the map and get another clue to try and figure out what's going on. The biggest problem I have with this game is there's no NPCs. There's nobody to drive the story forward. It's just you. Now, if you're playing this multiplayer with your friends, you've got other people to talk to and things like that, I get that. But if you're playing this game single player, you're gonna be in for a pretty dull experience, I think it's fair to say. Now, I quite like chilled out games. I quite like games that I can relax to, that's, you know, not overly muddled. Sometimes you just want to put a game on and it's fairly simple to play, and that's what you're going to get with this. It's a fairly simple game to play, and if you want to describe it as dull, you can, and it is sometimes. It's one of those you can put on for an hour or two, and then after that you're thinking, yeah, I've had enough, I'll come back to it in a couple of days. It's one of them sort of games. It doesn't draw you in. The story doesn't necessarily draw you in. And the battles themselves, the gunplay here on display is, well, it's not Call of Duty, but it does its job. I think it does its job anyway. I don't really have that much of a problem with the gunplay, but I'm not a massive fan of things like Call of Duty and things like that, you know, on these top first person shooters, so I couldn't really compare it to them. But I'm fairly sure it won't compare to them either. There's a good variety of weapons that you can pick up along the way. There's lots of loot you can pick up. You can pick up extra parts to add to your weapons, to mod them. You can put silencers on them and extended magazines and all the usual stuff, scopes, and all the weapons feel quite genuine. For example, the first rifle that you pick up, when you put a scope on it, when you look through the scope, it's cracked and broken, and the weapons feel genuine from the 1980s, you know what I mean? And the enemies that you're fighting here in this game, the variety here is nothing special. You've got your usual scout type robots that are fairly easy to take down. You've got these little spider type robots that once you actually manage to shoot them, they're fairly easy to take down, but they jump all over the place, so they're a little bit tricky to target sometimes. And then you've got bigger machines and bigger machines and bigger machines, and then eventually you'll get to these huge machines. So the variety is okay, but after a while you kind of feel like within the first 5 to 6 hours of this game you've kind of pretty much seen everything it's got to deliver, and you will know by then if you're enjoying this game. It's, you know, it's nothing spectacular, but it's everything works. Everything works on this game. I've not experienced any bugs, any slowdown, any graphical glitches, any clipping, anything major that to say really. There's none of that. It runs fairly smoothly. It's got a good level of customization. You can you can skill up your character. You can add skill points here and there. A huge level of customization in regards to how you want your character to look. Now, I always find that a bit weird in a first-person shooter because you can't see the character. You know, it's only when you go in the menu and you can see what they're wearing. So I've always found that a little bit odd in first-person shooters when you can customize your character because you can't really see them, and that's no different here. But it's a pretty playable game, this, with an interesting story, and I think this game would have been infinitely better if they'd have put some NPCs in the game, or even just a limited few, some hiding out here and there. But essentially the gameplay loop is go here, pick this clue up, go there, investigate here, get this clue, do this, do that, and it gets a little bit dull. And the other gameplay loop of picking up weapons and stuff, they're not frequent enough for you to get excited about, I'm going to go in that building and check it out and see what loot I'm going to get, because it's pretty much the same stuff every time, and not often do you pick up anything new. What I'm trying to say here is it's a playable game. It's decent enough, but I think for those of you who are thinking of buying this game, I think you're probably going to want to go down the multiplayer route. If you've got 4 friends and you like to play multiplayer games together, you're probably going to have some fun with this game in that case. If you're into single player games and you're not into multiplayer games, then you're probably going to struggle with this one. But it's technically sound, it does everything it says on the tin, it looks decent enough for the price, but other than that it's a little bit bland and dull, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's a daft decent game really, it's not too bad. So that is my review for Generation Zero. I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for watching.